Do you guys still remember the latest 6.1-inch iPhone? That's the iPhone 12. You know, for something so weightless, it does a pretty good job running something as heavy as iOS 26. Let's talk pros and cons of this device with iOS 26 in mind. This display is practically almost the same experience when you look at something like an iPhone 16 Plus. They both have 60 Hz. They both have OLED. They both have the same pixel density, kind of 460 ppi on both of them. Same HDR10 support. So I can only call that a pro at this point. It can't be a con. Of course, you can't really expect anything stellar when you are using this display and then you step outdoors. The build quality is also very perfect when you factor in 2025. You can't compare this with like a 14 Pro or a 13 Pro that still uses stainless steel. Like, it's practically weightless. The camera size, it fits the kind of form factor and size it has. Yeah, it still looks better on cases than the whole bulky camera cutouts we have on the latest Pro models. Just 164 grams. That is definitely a pro. The performance is actually still very acceptable in 2025 because it's a 2020 flagship. If I compare it with almost every Android device that came out and has a corresponding chipset with the A14 Bionic, this performs better in single core, which is very important for like simple processes which make up majority of what you would use your iPhone for. iOS 26 also runs surprisingly well on this device, thermal wise also, because most of the bugs present on this device are also present on the latest and the best iPhones out there. The GPU is also good enough to run something like even Call of Duty Mobile, that's very optimized, and also Brawl Stars, Clash Royale. Of course, if you are playing Call of Duty, I would advise you lower the graphics a bit so you can keep good thermal stability. Sometimes when I charge my main iPhone, I use this in the meantime to play Brawl Stars and Clash of Clans, and it has never disappointed me. Besides the fact there is 60 Hz, which the iPhone 16 has in common as well. And while all these pros I give seem very promising, the cameras are good software wise. Yeah, Apple really significantly improved things like night mode and portraits. That computational photography was very well improved on the 12 series. Yeah, but then the camera hardware itself is a problem in my opinion. I've used the 13 Pro Max, the 14 Pro, the 15, and this camera is a lot different than those devices I just mentioned. The camera is so small, yeah, it doesn't really let enough light get into the hardware, and that results in graininess. I don't know if that's what results in it, but then like you can just tell it's very grainy. Yeah, I've taken a couple B-rolls with this device and I struggled to get a decent enough quality to use for YouTube. Yeah, so you might want to note that, but definitely if you're outdoors, the camera quality is very good and very decent, better than almost all the 2020 flagships for sure. And also we lack cinematic mode, so for those two factors, it's definitely a con. The thermals are also poor. Yeah, because I know I said they are decent, but then that's when the phone is kind of underused and kind of idle. If I load this phone, it gets very hot and laggy. My major concern is battery life. Yeah, this device has 2815 milliampere hours, and back then the power efficiency on the new 5 nanometer A14 was very obvious, but over time, you know, time has passed. Yeah, and then the device is practically very weak when it comes to battery. It and the 12 mini, they are crazy not good enough. Also, you can't really compare this in any way to the battery life on the iPhone 13 series. Those are like miles ahead. I moved from the 12 to 13 in 2022. Back then, the 12 wasn't anything close to bad back then. It was still very high grade, but then I still noticed how good the battery was on the 13. Not to talk of a couple more years later, the gap would even grow wider, obviously. What I would say, my honest opinion, is that if you care about outdoor brightness, you have to get the 13. That one is 800 nits, while this is 625 without HDR, of course. Same goes for camera quality indoors. You would need the 13 for that. Battery life, the 13 also. And then if you want to get this device now, you'd have to get at least 128 gigs of storage to be able to handle anything decent. Of course, if it's like your second phone or something just for making calls, you can get a 64 gig, and practically that 128 gig model costs like an iPhone 13.